I'm Kiera Morgan. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Coffee with Kiera, sponsored by The Human Being in Newport and Lincoln City. And today I am here with State Senator Dick Anderson. You just come off of the short session
We did.
for 2026. So let's talk a little bit about how things went. And first of all, what do you do as a state senator?
Well, I like to think of a lot. I do a lot. Other people question that, so there starts the conversation. But no, in all reality, people think of the role of a state senator or a representative is just during this actual session. And in Oregon, we have 1 year is 160 days. This year, which is an even year, it's 35 days. Constitution maxed, so you can't go forever. And, that's where the visible work occurs, having committee meetings daily, having floor sessions where bills come to the floor and get voted upon and hopefully move on from one chamber to the other and then to the governor for signature. But, Kiera, most of the work I have found, and the harder work is actually non-session. That is where, I think a good representative is out listening to people. What are the issues? What are the problems that people are living with today? How can we fix them? How could the state assist? And I'm a big local government fan, so I'm not always looking for the state to come in and save the day or get involved. That's one of the reasons I became a state senator, because I felt those 90 experts in Salem, called legislators, were getting in my way in local government when I was mayor and dictating inappropriately to local communities. But this is where I spend a lot of time talking to people, having town halls, just coffees, and people actually come up and share with me or email me. And that's where I take the idea, make sure it really is a problem, refine a little more what the actual problem is, and then who's best to fix it, and start with that process.
And let's talk about your district.
Sure.
You have a pretty broad district.
It's a very big district. So, there's 30 senators in the state, 60 House reps, so 2 to each Senate district. So in my case, Senate District 5 is all of Lincoln County, goes down the coast all the way down to Coos Bay, North Bend, Charleston, goes into Benton County as far as just a little past east of Philomath, not all the way to Corvallis. And in Lane County, it goes up to Fern Ridge Reservoir. So it is a big geographic area, but it's still 140,000 people, which all the other Senate districts are similar in population. I've got a couple of senators on the Eastern Oregon. One of them in particular talks about his Senate district is 43% of the Oregon land mass.
Wow.
So you can imagine that's a lot of driving to get to his 140,000 people. So they're all different sizes, and it takes a lot of work. I think I was mentioning to you earlier, tomorrow I'm down in Coos Bay in North Bend for a couple of days.
Doing some town halls.
Doing town halls and having meetings with the port and the hospital and the community college. So, it's a 3-hour drive down, 3 hours back. So I like daytime meetings.
Understandable.
Old guys like me, it's tough driving at night. But yeah, it takes a lot more than people expect. I know I get criticized from Lincoln County for them not seeing me as much as they used to, and that's because I got double the size and have more to do. But it starts conversations, and I like that. Yeah.
So let's talk about the session. What are some things that you are most proud of that accomplished this session?
Well, I like to reflect back on every session, and you can make lists galore of bills that did or didn't go through, and one's involvement. But one of the things I look at first is conclusion of the 25th session. That was the long session. We came out of that in 1st of July, and immediately. Because in the long session, you approve the budget for 2 years. So immediately, the federal government had made some changes to their tax structure, which impacts Oregon. 30% of Oregon's budget, which we just approved, is impacted by federal. So we knew we were going to be, theoretically short of funding because of the federal dollars and different changes. So that then starts shaping your short session, which is right around the corner in 26. So, I was trying to think of the things that were really noisemakers prior to the session was budgets and the gas tax. Referendum. It had been collected enough signatures quickly. It was going to be on the November ballot, and so that was there. And the number of people who signed it so quickly really indicated that the citizens of Oregon weren't very thrilled with paying more taxes.
It's got to be a tough situation where you need the money, you need more money to fix the roads and maintain ODOT. And costs, of course, are all going up. But our costs, citizens' costs, are also going up considerably.
Right.
And, gas right now, as we're doing this recording, is encroaching on $5 a gallon.
Right. Yeah. You're right. And we were down lower when this was going on. But I think you have kind of stated what you've heard from the media and the positioning of this proposal of a gas tax. 6 cents, it's only 6 cents. You're paying 40 now, it'd be 46. Except if you look at all the other fees that were also, it came up to a much larger increase in, your transportation. When I look at these kind of things, I'm a big one for priorities, and where are we spending where we don't need to, and kind of getting agencies, and that was one of the things we were doing in 25 was getting agencies to think about what their core mission was and where they'd had some mission creep, which added work and budget. Because we were also asking them to come up with, don't cut yet, but come up with suggestions of where they could cut 5 and 10% of their budgets. You'd thought we were cutting off arms and legs just to get a list.
And again, it's like your own home budget. If for some reason you have an emergency and you lose some of your income or something happens, you have to look at your overall budget and go, okay, we used to eat out once a week. Now maybe we eat out once a month.
Right.
Or, I used to go out for coffee considerably more. Now maybe I only go once a week, or
Yep. No, and that's exactly right. But in the legislature, and I think in governments, and depending, I'm going to generalize, but I think the first reaction isn't what can I cut, what do we not need to do? It's where can I find more revenue? And that's I saw that as mayor. I see it now even more on state level. Always looking for more revenue streams. And if there's one you like, increasing that fee, even better, kind of stuff. So I fight against those, quite frankly, because I think your first measure has to be, what's your core business? And what's the core business of the agency? What are we doing that could be cut? Now, cutting isn't easy. And I'll tell you, looking at my friends in the legislature and their ages, I can tell you 3/4 of them have never been in an area or time in history where they've had to do any cutting. When you think of it, take 50-year-olds and lower, why would you? Things have been pretty darn good, economically.
Mm-hmm.
So now here comes some, after good times, some I think are going to be more hard times coming, not just this year, but the next couple of years as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to get ready for them. So I have fought against that and trying to get people to look at priorities and prioritize what really needs to be done. And I talk about this on the floor. Supposedly, we're in a housing crisis. We, the state of Oregon, not just yesterday, but we've been for a decade or more. It wasn't until, thankfully, Governor Kotek at least did an emergency and calling it a crisis, but that was 23. What have we done for housing? We've put a lot of money towards housing, but in fact, permits have dropped.
Really?
When she declared an emergency, Oregon was doing around 20,000 permits a year. Today, last year, about 14.
Really?
Wow. And that's after spending supposedly a whole bunch of money, all these kind of things. So obviously, to me, two things. One, things we did haven't germinated enough, maybe, but we don't know that, or they weren't helpful at all. And I've stayed in the housing arena because that's my background anyway. And I've said, if it's not land and it's not regulation and it's not infrastructure, I don't want to touch it. Because those three things is how you're going to improve a housing environment. Mm-hmm. And when you think of housing, think of all the things without housing, affordable, and permanent, and blue tarps are not housing to me. So I'm talking about housing. If you don't have that and you're not comfortable with it, then your health deteriorates. You more likely, your behavioral health, mental health.
Oh, so yeah, mental health, depression
your drugs and stuff. And you're scrambling for food. So all the kind of, social things are getting in the way. And yet we haven't done the right things when it comes to housing. Still working on it, still pushing it. To me, it's number one thing. And we've added a couple things. So to kind of answer your question, one of the big things this time was for communities able to bring some land into the urban growth boundary for senior housing.
That's so needed and so important.
Again, on the coast, we're the oldest, everybody's younger than I am.
Not quite.
But over 55, and when you think of that population and the coast, a lot of these folks, depending on that age range, they might be a widower, they're still living in the family house. It'd be so nice to get them out of that house so a family could buy it. But they don't, because where are they going to go? We haven't provided appropriate housing for seniors.
And rents have gone up significantly to the point where if you're on a fixed income with Social Security, and I think we see that a lot again here in Lincoln County, and talking with Chantel Estes, who runs the county overnight shelter program. The majority of the folks that she sees or has seen have been seniors because of that issue.
Right. Yep. So we've got to find that solution and still work on it. But again, it's also a point, because not to belabor the point, but Social Security wasn't meant to be your only income stream when you retired. It was kind of a save, last ditch. And so one of the things we've got to be doing is our young people and having to save. They need to save, and we've had programs for them to save for that pension and get involved.
Well, now we have the Oregon Saves,
Exactly.
which is
I happen to be on that board.
yeah, that's great.
Yes, it really is, and this is like a 401k and stuff, and the state manages it for you and go. So we just got to get more people thinking out in advance, because we can't rely on and shouldn't rely on the state to be or the feds through Social Security. So yeah, housing is big for me. Of all things I've said before, child care is huge.
Yes, thank you.
It continues to befuddle me that the business community hasn't recognized the damage of lack of providers, lack of child care affordable again and available that impacts their workforce. And so we've been trying to, like any economic development process, you keep what you got. So we don't want to lose the providers we've got and then build off it. And one of the things I'm finding is liability insurance has really gone up for providers. In anything to do with youth, whether it's foster care, boys and girls clubs, early learning centers, child care, liability insurance has just been climbing. So I was trying to go after that this session. Wasn't getting enough information early enough because it's so short. So we switched it to a task force to actually throw a wider umbrella and get people involved, the insurance companies and stuff, to better understand why the insurance risk is going up and what can we do about it. Because I'm a little bit convinced that the insurance providers aren't aware of all the safety things that the facilities are doing, and so we're kind of mirroring that. But that's one of the things we'll be doing this off session, is trying to identify those kind of things so we can hopefully bring down or kind of stabilize liability insurance.
I think that's great. Anything to support childcare and families is so important. It's going to be on my epitaph. You cannot have economic development without childcare. It just can't happen. It's a three-legged stool.
Well, and you were at the Economic Summit, were you not, last week?
No, I
okay. I thought
missed that. I was the one the year before, though.
But one of the panels, interestingly, was the 4 pillars or pillars of economic development: housing, education, child care, health care, and all tied into the community college. It was a very well done panel, and it tied how all those things are interconnected and builds that base for economic success.
So thank you. I appreciate your work on that.
Trying to think other conversation points. Talked a little bit about the budget gaps. Miraculously, they weren't so big gaps after all. Right? I mean, of all the noise we heard about early, I think totaled up, out of all the agencies, we did cut agencies, 128 million. So the gap originally was around 800 million. So we cut 128 million from agencies. Now those, quite frankly, came from budgeted positions that were vacant, and supplies. Came up to 128 million. And that was really that, and we disconnected with the feds on the tax thing, which brought in another $311 million. So that kind of filled the gap they needed. But then I stepped back and say, well, gosh, we put $300 million to affordable housing, which was good. We put $365 million to renovate the Moda Center in Portland. We put $2.1 million to buy a waterfall. So it always interests me as to noise made, and that's why I like to go back and see what the noise might have been, what the noise really was, and then what we did about it. So I may sound suspicious, and I am, about what people say. Show me the facts, and then back to priorities. What's important, because we got plenty of money in coming through our tax system. It's just we don't want to cut anything or switch anything to match up with crises and real needs. So.
And let's talk about your work across the aisle. You work collaboratively. You're Republican, but you work collaboratively with, for instance, Representative Gomberg and Democrats. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of that?
Yeah, very important. One, I'm a firm believer that no party should have constant control of the legislature. And in Oregon, we've had a one-party rule for decades, I think 4 decades. And it's just not healthy, first and foremost. I don't care if it's Democrats or Republicans. It's just not healthy. So I'm in favor of as close I can get to balance with members is a good thing, because then it creates a environment where you really do have clear and constant discussion about issues and impact and stuff. In the situation we're in right now, it's just called a supermajority. Both houses, they don't need my vote as a Republican. 30 senators, you only need 16 votes to pass a bill. They got 18 players. You don't need my vote. So, one would say, well, why are you there, Anderson?
Well,
and the reason, to your point, is I'm viewed, quite honestly, and rightfully so, I'm not an obstructionist. People know me well. They know me well. They know I have the best interests at heart for all, not just Oregon, but my district. I've made a lot of noise about being the senator from the coast and trying to get resources to the coast. And I point that out often in a lot of my committees, because I'll be sitting next to a chairman of the committee who's from Portland, and we're talking about healthcare or childcare. And I lean over to her and say, we don't have that in my district. We don't have that in my district. And it's, you forget, because you know best where as I say, where I put my head down at night. And they're appreciative that I'm pointing out, because they're good people, and they want to.
But they're just focused on their piece of the pie,
first and foremost, because that's what they know best. So I'm allowed that kind of discussion points with the other members, and they appreciate it. I've got a long list of all the kind of committees and task forces I sit on. One, they like to have a Republican, and they like me because I at least offer suggestions, and that's part of the approach I take, is trying to be helpful, trying to solve problems in a constructive manner, and it's worked. I continue. I have to actually turn down requests for be on the committee or something just because of time. So to your earlier question, what do I do all day? Unfortunately, I got a 2 o'clock.
You're a professional committee man.
But that's where you have the time to talk to people and that good exchange about, how might that affect my district or your district? Is it really solving the problem, or are we making up a problem here to solve? It's, I enjoy it. And it's been good, and the people are good. There are times when you'd wish a little more common sense would, come to the top.
So, Senator Anderson, as we wrap up, is there a place that people can go to get more information, or if they have questions?
Well, they can always call me. I've got through the Senate, I've got the email. If they don't get my nice newsletter, they should sign up on the through the Senate and legislature. You could sign up for all these. I live right here in Lincoln City. I'm out and about, and I, much like you text.
We see each other often.
Me, it's 1 o'clock. You'll be there. Yeah. So it works well. I invite those conversations. It's interesting again that I think, I ask people to be a little broader in their thinking, not so narrow-minded or painting me with a brush as if all Democrats are the same or all Republicans are the same. They certainly aren't in either party, and so I encourage people to look at what I've done and not what they think I'm doing.
All right. Well, Senator Anderson, thank you so
Oh,
much
you bet.
for joining me on this episode of Coffee with Kiera. We are sponsored by The Human Bean in
Good
Newport.
coffee.
You can find them at 6th Street and Highway 101 in Newport, in Lincoln City here. They're at the north end of town on the west side of the highway by TLC Credit Union. Thanks for joining me. I'm Kiera Morgan.